Call of Duty is so cooked. For a franchise that's as old as dirt, I gotta say they have made bending their fans over an art form. I mean, you search literally anywhere on the internet and you'll find endless amounts of videos, articles, and Reddit posts detailing the absolute absurdity that happens within this once great franchise. Skill-based matchmaking, skill-based damage, the former CEO being an alleged certified pile of shit while also pushing a code of conduct to make environments safer, an anti-cheat that never works, and the removal of fan-favorite features, which is why I feel no other fan base in gaming gets it worse than a Call of Duty fan. And the most recent cheating problem, I think, has finally got a lot of players to finally say enough is enough and look for other games. Big creators who were once some of the faces of the community have started to speak out about the problem and how they themselves might even take a break until things get better. I mean, seriously, how is it within the last 5 years since they've added crossplay that they've had this big struggle with this cheating problem? Will Ricochet, the Ricochet anti-cheat system is basically a condom with holes punched in it. Like, I'm not entirely sure who it's protecting, but it's most certainly not the player. Oh, but give the developers some more time and they'll address the cheating problem. Hey genius, guess what? They'll never address the cheating problem. You know why? Because by banning cheaters from the game, Activision loses money. And if there's anything I know about this scummy publisher, it's that they hate losing money. They would much rather focus all that time and energy that they could put into fixing the cheating problem by pushing those overpriced bundles you find in the store. I'm also willing to bet more people cheat in this game than they're willing to admit. And let's just say they start to ban people. The people that they end up banning will just come right back because the game's anti-cheat doesn't have a proper way of actually banning people forever. Now granted, I've gotten pretty lucky with my experience of not seeing many cheaters because 90% of the time I'm invested in prop hunt, mainly because of just how sweaty the game is. Don't worry, we'll get there. Like, you can hold out hope all you want for the game to get better and for the cheating epidemic to just go away, but I'm gonna tell you something, it won't, because it never does. Because if there's anything I've learned from my 20 years of fandom of this game, it's that the developers get off by watching players get upset and lash out.
We are deeply sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry.
They're never sorry. In fact, they're more likely to think what the rest of the world thinks, that being the Call of Duty fandom is just a bunch of complaining babies. They also know they have the community by the balls because there's very few games like Call of Duty that would even be able to take some of this fan base away. And whenever there is the slightest bit of competition, Activision and the game's developers do magically grow this willingness to fix some of the game's key problems or add/re-add some features the players have long requested. So while the game might get better, the fact that these games release yearly means that they're constantly subject to change. Anyone remember how they dialed back on the carry forward in the multiplayer? I mean, just look at Call of Duty's competition right now. Halo is barely relevant anymore. Battlefield doesn't have that fast-paced, brain-rot gameplay that keeps Call of Duty fans hooked. Medal of Honor is dead, and X-Defiant, the latest COD killer to come out, got shut down because Ubisoft realized they had to spend money. So what's next? Fortnite's ballistic game mode? Actually, there might be some good potential there. See, without any competition, this franchise is left unchecked, allowing them to get away with literally anything. It's basically how games like Madden or MLB The Show have gotten away with putting out the same game plus one new feature every year. Like skill-based matchmaking for years, players have been complaining about how awful this system is, and yet the developers seemingly just gaslight the fan base so they can justify how it's one of the best inventions the franchise has ever seen. Modern Call of Duty since the introduction of skill-based matchmaking make every single game feel like a gauntlet. I mean, there's nothing more that I love than coming home after my 9 to 5 and have to face some of the franchise's most sweaty players just because I'm mediocre at best at this game. And not to mention, it does pretty much negatively affect the game's matchmaking. There have been times where the matchmaking just takes so long that I've put on episodes of Survivor just to pass the time. And yes, I do think Sue got robbed. Or maybe we talk about skill-based damage. I don't even know how that's fucking legal. A system that literally manipulates the level of a user's damage against someone else without them even knowing is the definition of shady. Or maybe the definition of shady is how they still sell games released during the last time the Yankees won a World Series at full price. Some of them, you need a third-party client on PC just to play it safely. Oh wait, maybe it's when the franchise announces that they won't carry over content from the previous game and then re-release that content for the same amount of money, if not more. Or maybe we talk about how the game's developers are literally using AI to help develop some of the game's promotional content that you see in the store. I mean, look anywhere on Twitter. You can literally find people calling out the numerous amounts of content that are using AI-generated photos to actually create some sort of promotion for these bundles, and they have yet to address it. At least from what I've seen, they have not addressed any of that. And why not just reiterate the developers' inability to fix the cheating problem within this franchise? Like, this shouldn't be a discussion that's had every single year they've released a game. In my opinion, you should want to provide players with the safest and best possible experience, that way they're constantly supporting the game. But Activision doesn't seem to care, which is why I hope Fortnite Ballistic is just the beginning, because what I think will end up happening is once Epic Games sees the popularity of the Ballistic game mode and start to fine-tune it, they'll make a move towards developing a multiplayer similar to Call of Duty, and this will almost certainly put the pressure on this franchise to make moves. It also helps because Call of Duty is just basically leaving the goal unguarded for any game to come on in and just take some of the player base away. And yes, there was a bit of hope that X-Defiant could be that game that would be a COD killer, or at least provide some sort of competition, but they completely fumbled it. Even though I also do believe it would be very wise for any sort of studio, publisher to purchase the IP, that way they can keep going with that potential. Look, Call of Duty needs competition, but what's funny is even without competition, this franchise is starting to fall apart because of the yearly fuckery that ends up being put on full display for everyone to see. And I hope with every fiber of my being, this fucking franchise continues to see a decrease in players, and I hope we see more games come out and put a bit of pressure on this publisher and the developers. Because the years of this franchise putting out quality games is far behind them and they are completely cooked, and things need to start changing.